Hello and welcome to our podcast for college Catholics. I'm Father Patrick Wainwright, and today I have a guest that endured a life-threatening accident and by the grace of God is able to join us today. Kevin lives in New York. He is 31 years old and he graduated from college with a major in sports management, and he loves running. Actually, he runs a half marathon every day, and he also loves praying. He was a college student at East Stroudsburg State University in Pennsylvania when he suffered a life-changing accident on August 2011, and he was then 21 years old. So, hi Kevin, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me today, and I'm really happy to have you to share your story with our podcast listeners.
Thank you, Father Pat. It's an honor. It's always great being able to share my stories, whenever called upon.
You bet. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how was your life before your accident and whatever else, then the accident, what happened and so forth.
Yeah. I guess you say everything before my life, I can say was, pretty normal. I was an athlete, I played sports, played soccer, lacrosse, you name it. I was playing every sport. I was active like in the church world, not, even like today now, but, going to church on, weekly basis every Sunday, wasn't wasn't a creaster, as I like to call them, where they only show up to the two important holidays of the year.
A CEO, the CEO, they call them CEO, Christian and Easter only.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So, attending church, I definitely had to attest that to my parents, when I was growing up, like as a little kid, going to church every Sunday, even if I didn't want to, they made sure that we were going to church with them every single Sunday. So
perfect.
Leading up to the injury, I was definitely active in church, but I wouldn't say I was going every single weekend before the injury. I was still part of the church world. I just wasn't as active as I would usually be up until April of that year before my injury. Right around like my 21st birthday of that year, my grandma was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh no!
And I was very unhappy about the diagnosis, knowing that eventually, that was an end game. And I just said my relationship with God became reopened, and I had a lot of questions for him and asking him, if you're this almighty man and stuff like that, why are you taking something that's really important to me? And so it was, but I was always active in church, so it's always led up to this major moment.
Perfect. And so why don't you tell us what was the accident? You were a senior in high school, in college, or more or less, and what was the accident about?
Yep, I was going to be a junior in college.
Okay, junior in college.
That was my junior year. This would have been, so I transferred, so I went to East Stroudsburg. I transferred to East Stroudsburg, attended there 1 year, played lacrosse there. And the following summer, that's when I moved into a off-campus house with two of my teammates.
Okay, and, awesome.
And the injury for us, so it was August 26th is when I got hurt, August 25th, one of those numbers. No problem. But I got hurt at nighttime. I fell off the roof of my college house.
Oh my goodness.
15 feet high.
Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of you used to say divine things happen after the injury.
Now you were when you fell from the roof, you were knocked out. Who found you? How did that happen?
We had a friends gathering, teammates and some friends that we were friends with, like from college and stuff. And I'm not sure when I fell. We don't know.
Right.
We know that I went up to bed. But luckily, my friend Brian Bublitz must have been, he decided he was leaving our house, and he must have left within like 30 minutes after I fell through. So when he walked out the door is when he saw me on the front yard lifeless.
Oh my goodness.
Not there. And when he walked over to me, he noticed there was some blood. So my front yards and the front yard of my college house is kind of interesting. We didn't really have a very long front yard, so it was a front yard, maybe 10 feet, 15, maybe 10 feet of grass, 15 feet of grass, and then we had this cement wall thingy at the end of the yard, and yes. I'm guessing that I must have when I fell, hit the back of my head on that.
Ouch.
So so that was a very frightening thing for my friend and all my friends to come outside and be like, what do we do? What to do. Luckily, there's a couple things that's pretty important with like the fall itself. And there's nothing good about falling, but like when everybody just came outside, nobody moved me, which is pretty like miraculous.
Right.
A bunch of college kids, you would think that they would like move your body and stuff like that.
Right.
And also, I guess I chose a good spot to get hurt because there's a hospital where I got hurt. There's the hospital like in Pocono Medical Center is maybe like a mile away from my house. So so when they called 911, the hospital was able, the ambulance and stuff like that was able to get there as like as soon as possible. It wasn't like a long travel. So right from the get-go, that those are two really important things. A, whenever my friend leaving at the right time. Two, my friends not moving me around, because that could have really been really serious if maybe they did something that could have really ended things for me.
Absolutely. So, and then when they took you to the hospital, what was the diagnosis? What did they tell your parents and family and so forth?
Well, the diagnosis was not good. They told my dad that at that point I had fractured my skull in 5 places.
Five places.
And I had basically severely injured my whole brain. My brain was very badly hurt, severely.
And I heard something, I'm not sure, that's why you can corroborate, but something that your brain had shifted about an inch or something in your skull?
That was actually something we learned about when later on in like the whole process. It's a lot of the things that I learned about my injury, like it's pretty like wild to think about. But from the get-go, all my parents knew was fracture my skull, severely traumatized each lobe of my brain. The hospital that I was currently at, Pocono Medical Center, just didn't have like a trauma unit that was could support my type of injury, so they had to transport me to a hospital about an hour away, known as Lehigh Valley Hospital. Probably one of the coolest hospitals I've ever been to. Not a good thing to say, but like after the fact, but it's like a city hospital, but like a major hospital. But the doctor, when I was leaving Pocono Medical Center, told my dad that we're not, we hope he makes it to the next hospital. That was a key thing. Like they weren't 100% confident that I may or may not make it to the next hospital. And and luckily
because you had also injured other parts of your body, your neck, your bones, your spine, nothing?
Believe it or not, the only injury that I sustained was just my head. Like no broke, nothing, just my head took a beat.
But it was clearly a life-threatening injury, and it was even the doctors weren't sure that you would make it to the next hospital.
Yeah, I was probably already. I was in a vegetative state right when I hit the ground from the roof. Wow! So I was the guarantees of me even talking to you today, like making any sort of recovery right now is like this is divine. This is like God's work right here.
1 in a million probabilities.
Yep, but probably like around like a 0.00. Just make a full recovery. That's what we're looking at. But
and then what happened? Why don't you tell me what your family did? What all the process and how? Well, you know the rest. So
I get to the hospital. I make it to the next hospital. I'm there. I get stabilized at the next hospital. Parents, they get to the next hospital. Brothers, everybody in my family gets there. All my friends. The next day, my parents right when they get to the hospital. My dad's 1 of 12, so. Wow. 1 of 12. So next thing you know, my dad and my mom get on the phone telling the whole family. I'm probably within like 2 or 3 days. The whole Becker clan is as I like to call it, a big. My dad's 1 of 12, a bunch of cousins, over about 50 cousins.
Wow.
All come to the scene, and basically from day one, the family was in prayer. I'm very lucky. Like my parents are very strong in their faith, and just like the rest of the Becker family, very strong in their faith. So there's a lot of praying going on. Just, rosaries from day one. So that I had that for me. But the family got rolled in, I should say, very quickly from all over the country. It was, I have family at that time. I had my cousin that lived in California. She eventually made it in. Family in Ohio, New Jersey, Georgia, you name it. They were all on their way to, be there for support of my parents, and then, obviously for me.
Wonderful. And one of them knew something about Pier Giorgio, right? Was it an aunt?
My cousin Beth. She's a nurse, so she knew so when she had a relationship with Giorgio. She learned of Giorgio Frassati at believe it or not, a church in Colorado. She heard like a homily about Giorgio Frassati in Colorado. I heard the name of the church, but that's when she learned of him. Shout
out to your cousin Beth.
Yeah,
good for her.
And so she started the relationship, and about I would say onto like the fifth day is like she started her novena to Giorgio, but on like the fifth day she got a notification of like what was going on with my injury, and on the fifth day I was running a fever. Part of my body was just basically shutting down. Like everything on day 5 was shutting down. Now I was already in a coma, and the doctors basically were suggesting to my dad on that day that they put me into like a medicated coma, which is not good. That would have been like the end of all, probably the end for me, because that just means that like they're I wouldn't say they were running out of options or anything like that, but this for them it seemed like the right move. And on the 5th day, she should be in the novena, and on the 5th day she was like, all right, well then we got really step up the game, and she mailed a picture. She printed out a picture of Giorgio Frassati, and like overnight sent that photo over to the hospital and put right next to my bed. So it was like I had a picture of Giorgio Frassati, and I also had a statue of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So it was like we had a team up going on right there. But and as soon as believe it or not, as soon as that photo showed up, like got put next to my head on about 2-3 days late, on the 8th day, photos next to me, I start showing life. 8th day of while I was in the hospital, my eyes opened up for the first time.
Wow. So by the way, they did not put you finally on the medicated coma.
Nope. They decided to go against it.
Gamble. Okay.
Yep. God willed them into trying they tried this a little bit. They tweaked a little bit of my treatment about like what they were doing. So what they were, like she said, what they were doing while I was in the coma, they would do like shocking me. They would shock me to see like where I was, and they would do it to see if my brain would respond or like I would flinch or something. And then that was like kind of what they do. And instead of like doing it like X amount of times, like per hour or like every other hour or something like that, they just lengthened the little delay time between each time they would do that. And it kind of gave I guess you said gave me the chance to like kind of recover, respond.
Right, right.
But I'm just also a fighter. My parents are always telling the doctors in the hospital, like, you're talking to a guy that played through a full lacrosse season on a broken foot. You're talking to a guy that plays sports on sprained ankles. We've never seen just always tell my parents like this is different. This is not a sprained ankle. Mrs. Becker, Mr. Becker. This is real. My mom would always say my God is always higher. I can always climb higher than your mountain. Like that was her mindset. She goes, she knew we were gonna get through this, and so it was an interesting experience for them, but eyes open up on the 8th day. On the 9th day, I'm given a thumbs. When you're in a coma, the thing you have to do to like be announced out of a coma is you have to give them like a thumbs up. So you have to show that you can respond to them. So say, hey Kevin, can you give us a thumbs up? And from day 8 to day 9, I guess there's multiple times when my dad would say that there was times where I just would not do it. They would say, give us a thumbs up, and I would kind of just like shake my head. And I guess I folded. I guess you'd say I folded. I was like, so I gave a thumbs up on the 9th day. 10th day, I'm asking for my mom. some speaking, trying to speak a little bit. I couldn't, I was still getting them, getting everything,
Wow.
couldn't really speak, but I don't remember any of this. This is just like, this is the hearsay I get.
But you were able to mumble some words at least.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The funny joke is, I think in the YouTube video of like the story, my one aunt, who I love dearly, but we have a great relationship, but I go to her, hey, so you're still a loser, right? You're still, like, I always call her a loser and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, you're still a loser. That's when I knew that's when I kind of knew that Kevin was bad. But like little mumbling little things. My first memory in the hospital, which is something that when you tell doctors about my injuries and the fact that I have like any form of memory in the hospital is like beyond them. It shows for the healing. I saw a robot. So the hospitals that had those cleaning Roombas and stuff like that. So I saw a Roomba, like one of those cleaning robots coming into my room. That's like the first memory I had in the hospital.
Wow.
That's probably be like maybe the 12th day, something like that. But on like the 13th, 14th day, started walking again on the 13th, 14th day.
That is totally incredible.
Yeah, and then I was moved out of ICU into like this another care unit, but like a less like not
intense,
not as intense. And at that point, I was talking a lot, like having conversations with people, having as good as conversations you can have, like. But for the injuries that I sustained, having like any form of conversation like was like yet again it's like a not unseen. Basically walking around the hospital. Pretty much unhelped, not really needing help to walk around the hospital, the floor and stuff like that. I was taking a shower for like the 16th, 17th day, and what was very interesting is like as I'm getting the hospital was trying to get me into inpatient therapy.
Right.
At that point, so I couldn't pass a swallow test, and that was kind of like the thing. And the day that they were hoping I could take it, so it would be able to get us into the inpatient therapy, because this one doctor just knew right away. This Dr. Dubob saw right away that I was healing at a rapid pace, and he wanted to get me into inpatient therapy as soon as I woke up. I think he wanted to get me into inpatient therapy. Like he was like, we gotta get this guy out of here because he's healing much quickly than like we've ever seen before. And by the time I passed the swallow test, I was able to shower. I was able to pass a physical test, like a little obstacle course thing. It's too late. I was the only thing I wasn't 100%, obviously there's physical things that I had to like rebuild, but I could treat, I could, do my own thing. The only thing that wasn't there yet was the cognitive part. But, that, kind of quickly, healed. But on the 9th, so as I'm about to leave the hospital on the 19th day, as I'm signing my papers, I told my mom that I saw an angel while I was in my coma.
Uh-huh.
I was with an angel.
While you were in your coma?
Yep. I was with an angel, and I was like, you know what, Mom? And I was like, he kept me safe. And she was like,
wow.
Whoa. She was holy moly. Like, what? She's like, well, we're going to have to talk about this more. So, as I'm leaving the hospital on the 19th day, and I, get wheeled down, and I go to the transporter, I look at him, like, we're maybe like 100 feet from the exit. I looked at him like, man, I'm walking out from here. So I take my bag. He goes, we were supporting. I'm like, no, don't worry. I'm walking from here. So I get up, walked out of the hospital on the 19th day.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. Amazing, yeah. Amazing. Just amazing.
So walked in the hospital. Then, I don't know if it's in the YouTube video, but there is footage on like that day. I was throwing a football with my older brother on that day.
On the 19th day?
Yeah. Throwing a football. And then we went back to East Stroudsburg to pick up. We actually went back to the house. We actually went back to my house to pick up some of my stuff. Right. We went back to the room. Back to the scene. Went to my room to pick up my stuff, and we headed back home to heal. All I had to do was outpatient cognitive therapy, which is
right.
That could have taken a really long time. For my case, didn't really take that much of time, but the next day is kind of when we get into, we learn more about this mysterious this mysterious angel. That's which is what sets the story next to what makes it amazing. So the next day, we got home. My mom, we weren't really told what to do with me. I don't think there's a hospital can prepare a family for an injury that I sustained. When you, especially when you heal as quickly as I do, I don't think they're like, oh yeah, well, this is what you can do for your son. My parents didn't know what to do with me. I had no clue what was going on. I was happy to get out of the hospital. So, but they did tell that my parents keep him active, have him walking and stuff like that. So we went for a walk around my block, and this walk is not an hour long walk. It's it should take 15 minutes. But the community that I live in knew about my injury, so I guess when they heard about how bad my injury was, it was in the Village Herald, and they had received a copy of this Village Herald the week that I came home. So while I'm walking around my block, and people the area that we lived in knew who I was, when they saw me, they couldn't believe that what they saw, because they just saw a newspaper article what the heck's what this guy was in the hospital 2 days ago. It looked like they couldn't they're beyond themselves. So it was
he was about to die 2 days ago, and now he's walking.
Yeah. It's this one guy, one of my principal at my high school, who unfortunately he's passed away since I had a heart attack. But he's driving to his house, or he's leaving his house to go to this high school. Sees me, hear the brakes, hear the hard brake, hear him go in reverse, and he goes, "Is that you, Kevin? Is that you?"
Wow!
Holy! He gets out, hugs me and stuff. It was really everything about this injury is just humbling for me. But
wow!
I'm trying to get around. We're trying to get around this block, and I'm trying to tell my mom about it. I'm at this point. I'm telling my mom about this angel, and I was just telling her how I met him, how it works. So. What it was like. So when I was in a coma, it was basically I woke up in my coma. This is going to sound really weird to people, but you would think in a coma your dream world or something. I woke up in my college house. Basically, I woke up in my college house. So when I was in a coma, I woke up in my college house, bedroom identically the same, nothing, no changes. I woke up in my futon. Still had a messy closet, still had a TV with the Xbox, and had my American flag, had my Ghana flag. Everything was the same. The difference was I'm an early riser, so when I woke up and stuff like that from wherever I'm in my coma world, I heard a loud noise in my house. So I went, and in my town, where I was living at that time, wasn't the safest of houses. So you could have, me right now, I'm still thinking I'm in the real world, but I'm really not in the real world. I come, I go, all right, well, I got to check this out. It could be a robber, could be a college friend, could be a rodent, who knows, it's a college house. So I go, I walk downstairs, and that's when I see this young athletic guy. And, I look at him, and I say to him, "Who are you?" And he simply just, looked at me and goes, "I'm your new roommate." And right there, I'm just that's impossible. I remember it's at the back of my hand, I can tell him that's not possible. I have two roommates. Their names are Joe and Nick. And he goes, "No, I'm your new roommate. They're not with you right now." I'm like, all right. And a lot of people, when they hear that part, they go, "Is that how you are? Are you just a really calm person? If you see someone, are you just gonna be a friendly, you're not gonna freak out?" I was like, with the chronic strip, I don't know, but I'm pretty calm, so I was just no, I guess that's how I react. I'd be yeah, that's kind of I'm just gonna be a nice person. Somebody wants to be a new roommate, whatever, cool. So I go, okay. I'm who are you? And he goes, "I'm Giorgio." And I'm like, "All right, Giorgio, I'm Kevin. Nice to meet you." And I was and that, that was our, that's how it started. And then the rest, and right there I was all right, this is, comforting. But I still had no clue what was going on. Still in this comatose world or dream world, I'll call it. But it was I was in heaven. But from there on, the things that we did together, people always ask me, "Did we pray together?" I don't know. We may have. I just don't have that memory anymore.
Right. You remember something, but not everything.
Yeah. So I remember him and I were just creating like the perfect room. And we were just creating like the perfect hangout room, like a room like we could all, a bunch of my friends and all of us could just hang out and just, be together, like clearing the perfect room. I would study. That's like the one that's a real kicker for people to hear. When I said during my break time, I was either studying or playing video games.
Wow.
But like the studying ones always gets people because like I was good in school, but like if you hear me say I'm going to study, it would be all right. You must be studying for like a midterm or something, not like a test that's like a small test. So
right.
So that was really funny. Like I always tell that like my brother always had like he goes he literally spoke about studying. Like he said he had to go to school. Like while I was in the hospital, at one point I said, damn, I need to get back to school. I need to study. I gotta do this. Right. And then the one thing that's really like still like as I can still see it happening was there at a certain point since I was like where I was like the world, there was no like day or night, so it's kind of like just an endless day. If you look out the window, you felt like you're at peace. I couldn't really like explain like the colors or it was just like a peace, like a heaven. It was like a piece of heaven. It was very pretty awesome. But at a certain point, I was like, I gotta get out of this house. At a certain point, I was like, I can't. A person that likes to go out and run or work out or anything like that, I need to leave this place. So at one moment, I tried to leave the house, and I guess Georgia somehow, some way saw me trying to sneak out of the house, and stopped me. And he's like, he stops me. And he goes, "You're not ready to leave yet." And I'm like, okay. I'm ready to leave, right? Like that's me. Like, and
I'm leaving.
I'm ready to get out of this place. And he goes, I'll let you know. I'll let you know when you're ready to leave. So like that's like the last, and like that's pretty much what I was able to like around this block. Told my mom and then a lot. And then I get home. My older brother had just gone back from work, and my mom goes up to me and she goes, "I have a picture of somebody, right? I have a picture. Do you think this angel is the same thing, right?" And so it's like, we'll find out right now. We're about to find out, like, if this is the angel or if this is like just some hearsay. Like, no, this is not the person I saw.
Right.
And my mom didn't make any hint or anything like that. She was, I have a picture. I want to see if this is like the same thing you saw. And as she's upstairs, my older brother's downstairs, and he's just, I'm telling him more and more about the angel and stuff. And she comes downstairs, and when I do when I share my story with other people, there's like two versions. You got the PG version, the PG-13 version, and but my mom shows me the picture, and I'm like, I just look at him. That's the dude. That's like I didn't say friendly words about it.
Right? No problem. No.
But I said that's the son of. I'm like, that's the son of a gun. I'm like, that's the dude. Like that was the guy that was him. I'm like, that's
so
him.
that was the picture of Pier Giorgio Frassati. That she had.
From my so she had that she took home with her, and my mom, it was kind of like, Mom, that guy wouldn't like. I'm like, it's a love-hate, love type of thing. But like the guy wouldn't. I'm like, it was like a brother connection. It was kind of like one of those things where like this guy wouldn't let me leave the house. Of course I'm gonna say the son of a gun. This is the dude. He kept me safe, right? Like there at a certain point we got into a little fight, a little altercation. So it was it was pretty amazing. But that was like a huge part.
Of course.
Like we're 20 days into it's about 20 days. So we're 20 days into being post-injury. 20 days, and I'm talking about this angel, talking about Giorgio, and then I go to my inpatient therapy. I remember like on the first day of like my inpatient therapy, I kind of like told the doctor like I was already joking around, but I could already notice like on my first day I was like miles ahead of people that had suffered brain injuries, not even as severe as mine. Ironically enough, my first day in inpatient therapy, a friend of mine who I played soccer with in high school, he sustained a severe head injury about a month before me, and our first day was like both our first days were the same day, and like as we're riding the elevator together, I look at him like, wow. I'm like I could tell where I was already, like healing wise, and he was still really, you could tell like his wasn't there. It was really, it was an interesting time for me. Just seeing like, all this, everybody's struggling. But I took a test, like about a month after I returned from the hospital at the inpatient therapy, that basically just measures like where I was, like, how I've healed, like my brain's, the lobes and everything like that. And the test, usually takes about 3 or 4 hours. And I finished it off in, about an hour. And this doctor who we were with, Dr. Nicoletti, was brilliant. Like when I took this test, she didn't really think that how badly I was hurt. She didn't realize, like, 'cause I was performing so well in the classes that she didn't really recognize. So when we come back for the results, when I get my results like a month later in November, that was when she goes to my mom like, "Hey, Mrs. Becker, I'm really, really, really sorry. I underestimated, like, I didn't realize how serious your son's injury was." Like once she got the medical records and stuff, that's when we learned that my brain shifted, like, was through her. Like, we had no clue of that whatsoever. I don't remember the hospital telling my parents that my brain shifted, but when she told my mom that, she was like, "Holy man!" Like, she's like, "What's going on? What? This happened?" And then,
right, and then to be healed, it's impossible.
Yeah, she's like this. She's looking at me. She goes, "You're unbelievable. Like, this is on." She goes, "How do you think you've been?" And she looks at me. She goes, "How do you think you did on the test?" And it's like, I've never said I did. I don't think I've ever. Like, I've gotten 100 before on tests. And like when you get 100, like, after you take that test, I did amazing on that test. Like, you feel amazing. Like, whenever I do good on something, I say, or I'm just gonna say I did okay, or I did it, good. She was like, "How do you think you did on this test?" And I was like, "Okay." And she just looks at me. She goes, "You did amazing." She goes, "You're the same person that you were before you got hurt." She goes, "There's no issues." She's like, "You can go back to school in the spring."
Wow.
So we're talking August 26th. For a couple days, I'm dead. To November 11th, I'm being told I can go back to school. And
incredible.
And later that year, since January, we go back to Lehigh Valley Hospital just to get a checkup. Find out my skull is fully healed. So severely injured brain, healed, skull, 5 fractures, healed. Told in January that I can go back to playing recreational sports. So in the spring,
no way,
of 2012, I'm playing lacrosse.
Oh my goodness!
I'm basically living life as like I was never hurt ever. It was like I never was hurt before. So I was playing lacrosse about half a year later after the injury. So it's
wow! Congratulations! That's really good.
So then, and then eventually, I graduated, but right before I graduated, it's kind of like when word of my story caught the attention of a priest in New York. So Frassati USA already knew of my injury and my story, but they had at the time when I got hurt, they were already like focused on another miraculous healing of a girl who had cancer and she was fully healed. But a priest who in Long Island, Father Charles, he had a huge devotion to Giorgio Frassati, and he sort of gave a homily about Giorgio Frassati and a family that were like my parents are family friends with, and I guess he spoke about my story during his homily. Went up to him and said, "Hey, we know this guy that you speak of." And then we built. That's when our relationship started. He builds he constructs a statue of Giorgio Frassati.
Uh-huh.
I give my first testimony. Frassati USA shows up there, Christine, to just make sure that I don't say anything that would say it's not a true story. So it's like if I were to give a testimony and say I met Pier Giorgio in coma, if I said I met Pier Giorgio or something like that, she would say that's because he'd never identify himself when he was alive as Pier Giorgio or Pier Giorgio.
Very good.
So the fact that way I gave it when I said Giorgio, she was like, "All right, this story's is legit." And right now, as for that part of my story, it's at the Vatican right now. It's being viewed.
Wow. So they're considering in the Vatican whether your cure can be considered a miracle performed by the intercession of Pier Giorgio in order to use it for his possible canonization.
Yep, it would be the third. It would get him the sainthood, even though he is a saint. But it would get him
right, of course.
It would get him there. So it's pretty cool.
Wonderful. Well, very good. Well, thank you very, very much for sharing all this. Now, I want to ask you one final question, because you were in college. This happened in college, and this podcast is for college Catholics, college students. I wonder if there's any, now that all this happened and so forth, is there anything you would like to say to the young men and women that are listening to this podcast? A spiritual thought or a recommendation for their lives, and something that you would like to say from your heart.
Yeah. I know right now it's an interesting time to be Catholic. I know we're going through a very interesting time. All I can say is God loves you. God's always looking down upon you. Jesus loves you. Believe it or not, I know we're going through the month of June, and some people consider it another month. But this is the Sacred Heart of Jesus month.
Absolutely.
So now, if there's anything you need right now, I would definitely build a great relationship during the month of June to Jesus. And just know that, my story is one in a million, but just remember, if God is able to do this for me, just imagine what God can do for you. So keep praying hard, talk to God, and trust me, your relationship in the world will continue to open up for you.
Wonderful. Well, Kevin, thank you very, very much. We're all really blessed to have you and have such powerful witness told directly by you, because one thing is to say it, and I think in the previous episode I shared a little bit, but now being told by you yourself, that's pretty good. I think that is just amazing. And I hope many people get the chance to hear this and continue to pray to the saints, particularly Pier Giorgio, Blessed Pier Giorgio. And I also hope that your cure is, approved as a true miracle and accepted for the canonization of Blessed Pier Giorgio. That would be a great gift. But, we leave that in the hands of God. We know what you received is still a grace of God through his intercession, regardless of whether it's approved or not. So thank you very much again, my friend. I will continue to keep you in my prayers. And, you pray for me and for so many young people that will listen to your witness through this podcast. If anyone has any question you'd like to ask me, please send me an email at info@forcollegecatholics.org. Please remember to subscribe to your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you want to support this podcast, please review it on Apple Podcasts. So may God bless you, everyone, and we'll see you next time. May God bless your day.